Hello, in this video we are going to explore the table and table set functions in your TI-84 graphing calculator. And so before we can look at what those table functions can do, we first need to enter a function into our y equals. So if you want to go ahead and go to your y equals, and we will enter in a function. And we can take the function 15x plus 60 and enter it into our y1. We're not going to graph it even though we could, but we're specifically going to look at a table of the x and y values. So in order to get to your table, you're going to go to your graph button, but above your graph button, and I believe it's blue ink, you're going to see your table. And so to get there, since it's in blue ink, you're going to press your second button and then the graph button, which is going to take you to your table. And then this is what your table should look like when you get to your image. Notice here I have my x values. For any x value that it's plugging into my function that's in my y equals, it's giving me my y values, my outputs. And as I'm looking at this table, I can use my cursors, my up and down cursors, to scroll and explore the values that are in my table. So here I can look, I can go down, and as I'm scrolling down I can get to a number, a value like 10, and see that my y value is 210. And this is great for students to explore their table values, to say what is the y value when x is, and they can use their cursors to go up and down and to scroll and explore their table. Well, now what I want you to do is I want you to go to your table set function, and that can be found above your window button. So where your graphing buttons are, you should find one that says window, and above your window is where you'll find your table set. So again, since it's above your window in blue ink, you're going to have to press the second button first. But when you go to your table set, you're going to see an image like this. We have our table start, and you notice that it defaults that it starts at 0, and when we first looked at our table values, it started at 0. And then here we have our delta table, our change in our table. Our x value is changing by 1, which made it really nice and pretty for us to explore those outputs for our positive x values. But we know for not all situations do I want to use a table set of 1 or a table start of 0. So let's go ahead and let's look at what happens if I change my table, my delta table, to something like 100. Let's say that I want to explore really high x values. When I go to my table, I can see here that now I can see my change in my x value changing by 100, and I can see those changes in my y value a lot clearer. This is great for those situations where money is changing in hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. I could set my delta x as 1,000. I could change it to 50, any value that I wanted that matched my situation. We also have the option to change it to a really small value. I could change it to hundredths. Let's say I'm talking about money, dollars and cents. I can change my table, my delta table, to something like 100. When I go to view it in my table, you can see that my values represent that. So then when I scroll up and down my table, I'm changing by 100th. Well, now that we've looked at our delta table and how it can help us in problem situations, we also want to look at our table start. And we know that it defaulted at 0, but let's say that I don't need to just know what a value is when x is 0. Maybe I need to go down to when x is 5,000 or 2,000 or even 500. We know that we can use our arrows to scroll up and down, but as far as that being a efficient use of our time, we don't want to be scrolling all the way down to when x is 5,000. So we can tell our table to start at whatever value we want. And then when I go to view that table, I see that I can start at 5,000. Currently my delta is still set at 1, but again I could alter that to fit my situation. Finally, just like your graphing option, we can view more than one functions in our table at a time. So just like I could graph more than one functions on my graph, I can look at that in my table. So let's go ahead and add another function in our y equals. Go to y equals and add in the function 20x plus 100 in your y2. And then let's return to our table by pressing second graph. And we will see our table now has both our y1 and our y2 on the graph. And so if I wanted to compare two different functions, not only in their graph, I could also look at their table values. I could look for when they intersect. I could look at when one surpasses another from a table perspective rather than just a graph perspective. So we've looked at the functions of table on our graphing calculator and viewing those x and y values for our functions in our table, and then also how we can use table set to tailor both our delta x and our starting value. So thank you for listening.